Okay, so welcome everybody. Tonight's topic, or the overall topic, I've called Parenting with Soul. And one of the reasons that I thought about that is because what makes it very different when you think about things from an overall point of view, from a Torah point of view, from a Jewish point of view, is that parenting isn't just a daily task or a daily grind. It often feels like a daily grind. But there's so much more to it, and so much that one can invest in it, that it can be very good for our souls, but also if we can be informed by the fact that as human beings, we have this whole other side to us than just our behavior. So, what I mean by that is most of the time, or if not every time, a parent approaches me, they will say something like this: how do I make my child stop doing this? And they'll come with a specific behavior. Or how do I make my child do this? So, first of all, the word make is a whole issue on its own about being coercive and making, even though parents don't mean it necessarily in a totally coercive way. There is a sense of how do I make my child listen, cooperate, or how do I make them stop doing something? And the question is, well, who is your child? What makes them up? And in what context are they doing this? And then the question is, and who are you? And what are you bringing to the situation? But there's even a bigger question, and that is, what are you trying to achieve? So behaviors out of context are really meaningless. And I learned this a while ago that people Google questions like, how do I make, I remember this when I first heard this, I was a bit, how do I make my son pee in the bowl? That's a very specific question. And those are the questions on Google. How do I make my child sit at the dinner table? But really, that's not good parenting. You might find a little trick here and there, and you might get some cooperation. But we need to think about parenting in a much bigger way. We need to think about that we are growing human beings with a soul. And in fact, we see it as a godly purpose, that these children were given to us for us to really grow and help them develop and bring out the best in them. I once heard a beautiful analogy that we talk about Mother Nature. Why is it called Mother Nature? And the analogy was, and I'm including men in this as well, for once the language is going more that way, but if you think about nature or Mother Nature, you plant a seed in the ground and that seed disappears for a while, and Mother Nature or the ground has all kinds of ingredients that enables that seed to develop from a seed into a beautiful plant or tree, whatever it's meant to be. So that is really the important thing that a parent does, is to take that seed, that potential in the child, and bring in the correct ingredients that will help that child thrive. Now, because we live in a time, and I'm not referring to COVID-19 time, I'm talking to the general, 2020, 2019 generation of parenting, it's all about achievement. It's all about getting children to learn and to achieve. It's all about getting through very, very busy schedules. And I know this because when I talk to parents and I ask them what is their higher goal, very rarely do I have a parent who has one. There is, my child has just got to do well at school, or they have to do their homework, or they have to do tennis and soccer, and should I push them to do music as well? And that's on a very micro level that parents are trying to bring out the best in their kids. But what I want you to take away from tonight is a bigger way of thinking about your children. So, from a Jewish point of view, we talk about the soul has been given to you, entrusted to you, and we need to think about our kids in terms of who they are. What makes them tick? What are their individual dispositions, wants, and wishes? Which doesn't mean in any way that you give in to them, but that each child we need to think about individually. And the Tzemach Tzedek actually says we should spend a half an hour a day thinking about our children and what they need. So it's not a haphazard thing, and it's not what other people are doing. We need to spend time every day because it is such a sacred mission to think about what does each child need, and are we environment to bring out the seed, to bring out this kernel that needs to be developed. Now, I want to say, I hope no one is feeling guilty or bad. This isn't meant to make you feel bad. We all have ideals that we're working towards. None of us achieve it all the time. So please don't start feeling, well, I don't do it and I'm a failure, because that's just negative self-talk. It's a beginning to start thinking more about each child and what they need. And the truth is, when children know that you're thinking about them, that in itself is very nurturing. And analysts talk about this. They say that children know when parents carry them around in their head on a deep level. You don't have to tell them, but children can feel that parents are working with their children in their head. So I've seen this often, and I don't have scientific, I only have clinical evidence, is parents will come and see me about a child, and they'll come back for the next session and say, I don't know what happened, but the child is already doing things differently. But just on an unconscious level, the fact that the parents are starting to think about the child on a deep level, the child actually picks that up. So that in itself is helpful and wonderful, because you are integrating the child into your thoughts, and we have social brains and the child picks that up. So that's the first step, is to just think about what are the best things you can be doing, and every day giving it some consideration. So it's not a haphazard, impulsive way of parenting. The second thing is, often when parents say to me, how do I make my child do their homework? I will go, well, what is your goal? And very rarely do parents think about their deeper values. And so what I'll encourage parents to do is to write a mission statement. Think about, you've got married. If you're not married, that's fine. I'm just going to use all the old-fashioned terms. You've got married, you're building a family. What are you trying to achieve? And as a couple, if you are in a couple, to think about what are the overall goals. So if you want your child to do homework, is it because you want to teach them to finish what they start? You want to teach them to fit into society? You want to teach them to, you want them to excel at school? You need to have a value, because when values inform, and I'll use the word rules loosely, what you're trying to implement, then the child will be more likely to actually go along with it. So we've actually seen it now during this COVID-19 situation, where when there was a lot of discussion about getting people to buy into staying home and the lockdown, what all the experts were saying is, you need to be transparent. You need to explain to the public why you are doing this. Now, I'm not saying, and I actually don't like it when parents tell their kids every little reason. That's not what I'm saying. But when you are saying to a child, you know, it's important for you to be educated, and if you do your homework, you'll find that you'll cope better, and then you have a path for the child, and they know that education is one of your highest values. With time, your child will take on that value. You will also have a more structured way of parenting, because you will make choices that fit in with your values. So it won't be one day do homework and the next day tidy your room. You will be thinking more about doing things that are in line with your main values. And generally, one only needs 3, maximum 4 values. So when you make a decision about doing something, how does it align with this value? Because you can't expect your child to do everything, and you can't yourself think about everything. So it's about a more streamlined way of thinking about what you're trying to achieve. Now, I'm just giving this as a suggestion. It's something that really needs to be worked through, but it is something that I want you to take away, to dig deep and think about, what am I trying to achieve? Why am I giving my kids those demands or those rules? Is there a logic behind it? And to really clarify for yourself why you're doing it. Is it coming because of your childhood? Is it becoming because of your limitations? Or is there a real goal and purpose? And if there's a goal and purpose that you are passionate about, your child will pick that up and will respond very well to that. So I'm going to go through some very important values that should be inculcated in parenting anyway, besides maybe very specific ones. And one of them is gratitude. That being a parent, it's about teaching your kids how to think about life, teaching your kids how to be resilient when problems come along. And you do that by teaching them values and living by those values. So if you ever hear someone talk about, an adult talk about what they learned from their parents, what you will generally hear is, my father really taught me about hard work. I saw him when I was growing up, blah, blah, blah. Or my father taught me about the value of giving charity. No matter what was going on, he would always give a beggar in the street some money. Our values are what stick with our children. So you need to teach them values, but it helps them. Rather than how do I get them to do homework, the values help your child be better in the world, be resilient in the world, know how to behave in the world. The gratitude is a foundation of the Torah way of looking at the world. It's the first thing we say in the morning, thank you for restoring my soul. And when a child learns gratitude, they will be less spoiled and less demanding. So again, instead of going, stop being spoiled and stop asking for things all the time, you don't go down that path. The more you teach your children, isn't it wonderful you've got this toy? Isn't it great that we could do this? Isn't this food delicious? You show gratitude for everyday things that are happening. Your child starts appreciating what they do have and feeling filled up. Because often the need for more and more, this compulsive need for things, is because we don't feel full. But when we're grateful, we feel full. We feel I've got enough, because gratitude is about what we have. Our focus is what we have, not on what we don't have. If you Google gratitude, you will see that it's one of the most used words. And on Facebook, when people put up gratitude quotes, they are exceptionally popular. And I don't know if it's because Oprah, made it famous, a gratitude journal, but being grateful increases happiness. So you have a choice. You can actually be grateful you've got a home and a roof over your head, or you can look at someone who's got a much fancier home and feel jealous. That doesn't mean there isn't a fancier home, but when you're actually grateful, I've got a home. I haven't been evicted by my landlord. I've got a roof over my head. Aren't I lucky? I feel really blessed. Your child starts to feel blessed with what they have. So there are millions of opportunities every day to be grateful, and in an authentic way. I'm not talking about, sort of over the top, but it's a simple thing, even with your partners. If your partner cooks a meal, just be grateful. Say, thank you so much. It's not a competition of who cooks more. Thank you. I was able to put my feet up. That's really great. Thank you for tidying up. Thank you for making my bed. You bring into your home an aura of gratitude. And so what starts to happen is your children actually appreciate you more. Now, it's one thing to say to kids, do you know how much I do for you and you don't appreciate me? Honestly, that doesn't make the child go, oops, I made a mistake. Tomorrow I'm going to appreciate mommy. It doesn't work like that. But if every day you're appreciating the things in your life and you talk about it in a genuine way, your child takes that in, imbibes that, and starts appreciating you and what they have. So a lot of the issues about don't be spoiled and you'd better appreciate me more just go out the window, because it's rather the focus on, isn't it wonderful that we have whatever it is that we have. Now, it's not only material things. Being grateful for life is a huge thing. And we have amazing opportunities now. Maybe it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Rabbi Gorari mentioned this the other day, and I thought it was a great way of talking about this. He was saying that when you see some news clips at the moment, someone comes out of a New York hospital and they've survived. The staff form two lines, and even if they're pushing the patient out on a wheelchair, the staff are clapping and cheering. And the person in the wheelchair is so grateful that they have survived coronavirus. And that is how we should feel about our life every day. We should clap and cheer. We shouldn't have to get sick to do that. But when someone's sick, they realize, and the staff cheer, and it's an incredible thing that you are so happy because being alive in itself is great. The second thing is about being grateful for time. Now, again, now we have a lot more time with our kids, although I know they're going back to school. But to really teach the value of time to your children. So when you talk about time is a gift, how are you going to use your time? So instead of saying no screen time or that's too much screen time, you rather want to explain to your children that time is a precious commodity. And everything I'm saying to you as adults, we can do as well. And because of that, it's a bit like money. You don't want to fritter it away. So how we use our time during the day needs to be thought about. So we need time to eat, and we need time to exercise, and we need time to be productive. And we only need this amount of time for leisure. So again, your children might push against that, and as they get older, but you teach them the value. You know, you can choose, you can watch another movie, and has that been a valuable use of this resource, or is there a better way that you can use your time? And there's a lot of questioning. So sometimes you can't make your child, but you can inspire your child. And when they do use it in a qualitative way, you can reinforce that. You can reinforce that with rewards or compliments, but you slowly bring in the value of time. And time is very, very precious. And again, when someone you know dies or people age, you realize time is a precious commodity. So you teach that to your child. The other thing is teaching your child the preciousness of the world, gratitude for the world and how beautiful the world is and what the world offers us. And again, it doesn't have to be over the top, but it's something like, isn't it interesting? All the herbs we've got, how medicines come from plants, whatever you want to say. But bring that awareness into your life. And we should all realize how incredible the world is. So gratitude is a given. And the more your child learns to be grateful, the better they will behave, because they will have a sense of who you are and what they have in their life, rather than you lecturing them about their bad behavior. Now, another very important thing is to teach your children to appreciate other people. Now, obviously, the first people we appreciate are our family. So again, if you think about sibling rivalry, one of the ways that you are going to decrease sibling rivalry is to bring into your home how important everybody is, and we appreciate what everybody brings into the world. So it's easier to do it with outside people than siblings, but it's a general concept that you can bring into the home. So there was a famous rabbi who used to make a blessing whenever he saw a multitude. And the reason he gave this blessing was, he said, if this whole world didn't exist, I would have nothing. So it's a very useful exercise when you actually say, how many people were involved for me to have this cup of coffee? I've done this exercise with groups that I've worked with. It's millions of people. So we can start off with, let's say coffee's grown in Brazil. So you've got the landowners, and then you've got the farmers, and then you've got the people who have produced the machinery, and then you've got the water department that supplies the water, and then you've got the people who enable that landowner to buy it, and the lawyers and the conveyor. There's no end to even the farmers. Then from there, you've got the pickers, and then from the pickers, you've got the shipping companies, and then you've got the grinding companies, and then you've got the packaging companies, and then you've got the labeling companies. Then you've got the distribution. It doesn't stop. You actually had to work out how many people enabled you to have a cup of coffee, because I haven't spoken about the teaspoon, the mug, the sugar, the milk, the kettle, your water. A cup of coffee has taken millions of people for you to be able to have it. So the sense is, everyone is important in my life. Even if I don't know the Brazilian coffee picker, I am grateful what he's brought. Now, this takes away elitism. And a lot of children's bad behavior comes when we make them feel elitist, when we build them up to look down on other people, people who are disabled, people who are poorer than them, people who are struggling in class. Again, we can either say that's not a good thing, or we can just generally teach appreciation for other people. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, when you walk out, when I walk out on a Wednesday morning and the garbage guys are there, I'm just so grateful. I always have a chat to them because thank God someone is removing my garbage. If they didn't, I would be in terrible, terrible straits. And thank God there's a hairdresser because also I wouldn't be able to do my hair, and a dentist and a baker, and everybody's contributing to my life, and they're not worse than me and I'm not superior to them. We all are part of this organism. And so the more we teach our kids to appreciate how the world is multicultural and everybody brings value, the Torah even says that every single nation brings something. So we talk about the Romans were great road builders. Greek had the most beautiful language. Hashem has created the world that even every nation has a unique contribution to the world, and we all need each other. Our contribution is to be the people of the book. We have to worry about, are we doing that? But when it comes to building roads, maybe we're not so good. We have to know, but appreciate what people do and not have any kind of elitism or putting people down. Also appreciating parents and grandparents, the wisdom that grandparents bring. So again, instead of going, you have to go and visit your grandmother, you just go, let's go. You know, grandmother's got so much wisdom. We're so lucky we've got a granny. Let's go and hear what she has to say. And you can do it in simple ways. Children are very passionate, and they will respond to your passion and enthusiasm. Children do not respond to rules and regulations. They immediately go, whoa, I have to protect my autonomy. I don't like being told what to do. So by doing it this way, you are more likely, not saying it always works, but over time it will, you're more likely to get the cooperation that you want. Now, joy is a huge thing. To teach your child how to have joy, not from material possessions. A very important source of joy is by being kind. And you'll see this, you know, if your kids ever, someone's away and they do a poster for the front door, they love doing it. They have such excitement, or writing a note for someone who's sick at school. There's joy in being kind. So again, instead of lecturing, you should be kind and it's a mitzvah to be kind, you give your child lots of opportunities to be kind, and it's an exciting thing. Who are we going to write to? Who needs a phone call? Who needs to be invited? Now, a long time ago, I was running a parenting course, and I was actually horrified because I wasn't giving exactly this talk, but we were talking about teaching kids to include other kids. And there were two mothers in the group. There were about 40 mothers, and I know that both of them have kids with disabilities. And one of the mothers stood up and she said, I don't know why my child has to play with children with disabilities. I have told my child, you can play with whoever you want to. And if you don't want to invite them or include them at your party, that's okay. Anyway, I saw these two mothers and they stood up and they were trying to explain how hard it is for their children not to be included. And I just thought, how sad that people actually even think like that. That we live in a world where people go, my child is so special. If they don't want to play with a child who's a little bit funny, that's okay. Now, from a Jewish point of view, that is not okay. And our children need to appreciate that even children with difficulties have a contribution to make. And often that contribution is to make us a better person. So give your child opportunities, invite people. They will develop the joy of kindness. That in itself is fantastic. Take them to friendship circle, get them involved with things where you're teaching them the joy of kindness, the joy of giving to others. You know, it's funny, in happiness research, they've proven that when you give to others, you release a happiness hormone. And they call it sort of being addicted to kindness, because you release dopamine and then you feel good and then you keep wanting to do it. But we don't need to do it for the hormone. We know that we have joy when we're kind to others. And we need to give to others because we're all part of this organism. and we all need to appreciate each other. Now, another important thing is to work on communicating with our kids. And communicating, again, doesn't mean saying, what would you like for dinner, darling? Whatever you want, you can have. It's not that. And it's not explaining for an hour why you need to brush your teeth. This is not what it is. Communicating is more about talking about what is needed and what is asked for. So we talk about it as collaborative problem solving. That you don't say, we have a rule now that you're going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. You sit down and you go, the bottom line is you are going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. So that's what I mean. It's not like that the child has a say. You sit down and you go, from tonight, we're going to institute bedtime. And this is the reason, because it's very good for your health and you need to have a good night's sleep. How would you like to do it? These are some options. What will help you do it better? So the idea is it's not enforcing a rule. It's saying this is what's going to happen, but we're going to communicate. We're going to work together in a way that really suits us both. Now, being able to communicate to each child takes a lot of thought, because children have different personalities and they have different soul roots and they respond to different things. So I gave a talk a few years ago about this, and I'll try and remember it. It was a fantastic personality theory based on the three fathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, and Joseph. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. So it goes something like this. Let's say you need your child to tidy the room, and you know that your child has an Abraham personality, an Abraham personality. An Abraham personality, Abraham was very bold. You know, he smashed his father's idols. He left home. He was adventurous and bold. So the way you would talk to the Abraham personality would be to say, I'm going to challenge you. You know, let's make it an adventure. Which is the fastest way you can do it? Or let's say if you can do it in a topsy-turvy way, some way that will inspire the adventurous side of the Abraham personality. The Isaac personality is the rule follower. It's the most common personality type, and it's the child that we all need, the child that goes along with things. So that child, you can just say, when you need to tidy your room, please do it, and that child will normally do it. The third personality type is Jacob, and Jacob is the dreamer. So for the Jacob personality, you will say things like, it will be so good for the environment if we sort out things into different bins and give away things we don't need. You inspire through their dreams, because they're the idealist. Jacob was an idealist and a dreamer. Joseph, only 5% of the population are Josephs. Joseph, you can put him anywhere, he'll be a leader. He'll always be himself. He won't be influenced by the environment. So unfortunately with Joseph, there isn't much you can do. But you wait until Joseph decides it's time to fix up their bedroom, and then they will. And the idea there is, if you know your child is a Joseph, they will come around to do it because they are leaders, and it's a waste of your energy to do it. But as I say, they're only a very small percentage of the population. So it's this kind of thinking. Is my child a bit of an Abraham? Are they bold and adventurous? Are they a rule follower? And you communicate differently with each child. Now, don't worry about it causing sibling rivalry, because one of the big things that causes sibling rivalry, or maybe doesn't cause it but encourages it, we do it unwittingly, is trying to teach kids that they're equal. I love you all the same, and you're all going to get the same piece of chocolate cake. And then kids go, what about me? What about me? And I haven't got enough. And so the idea here is that when you actually let the child know that I'm thinking about you. So an example of this, when children say it's not fair and you know, we're not getting what we want. You can, if you've got a few kids, you can ask them all to take off their school shoes, and you ask them to swap school shoes, and they won't fit. And then you say, you see, you each need your own size. I can't buy you all exactly the same size shoe because you're all different. But as long as I buy each of you the shoe that you need, you'll all be able to walk and be comfortable. Now, children get this. From about age 4, they start getting this, and they feel it. So when you are going, this child needs this, and each child feels they're getting what they need, they feel less rivalrous because they're getting what they need. It's only because if everyone's dumped together and they're not getting what they need that they're looking at everybody else. But when a child's got their school shoe that fits them, they're not really looking at their sibling's school shoe. So a big part of working with sibling rivalry is to really cater to their needs. And as children get a bit older, sometimes you can talk about it quite frankly. And it's not a secret and behind anyone's back. You might say, I know it might seem hard, but I can ask you once and you will do that. Whereas, and in front of the other sibling, we need to do it differently. And that's how you're both going to get the job done. And they get it after a while, they get it as long as they feel heard and seen. In general, kids will move on from that. Now, respect is a huge thing. When you treat your children with respect, they will respect you. Now, this isn't the awe that parents need from their children, which is a different kind of respect. But if you don't swear at your kids, if you don't smack them as they walk past, if you don't demean them, if you talk to them respectfully, they will talk to you respectfully because that is the culture of the home. Sometimes parents feel, do what I say, not what I do. It's okay for me to swear, but it's not okay for you. It's okay for me to joke and tease and call you funny names, but then I get upset when you do that to me. So consistency is very important in a home and in parenting. If you're in a mutually respectful and appreciative home, your children will automatically be mutually respectful and appreciative. Because it's not do what I say, it's do what I do. We copy what we see happening. And children are just like sponges. Whatever they see their parents do, they just take it on board. They just ape it. They just copy it in all kinds of ways. And you see it when they play games. When they're playing mommy, mommy, you hear yourself and you go, oh, that's what I said yesterday, or that's what I do. So again, we're not perfect, but you aim to have a respectful home. You aim to have a home that no one is calling names. And that's why, for example, if siblings are fighting and you say, we don't have name calling in this house, they will listen because there isn't name calling in the house. But if you say, don't do that, and you say you were wrong and you get caught up in the fight, and then the child says, well, you're taking sides, you get caught up as the judge and adjudicator. But if you have a blanket no name calling, when it happens, you say it again, your children will hear that because it's a general way of behaving in the home. Having a tranquil home and a calm home goes a long way to preventing behavior issues. If you have a chaotic home, children will act out because the way kids get heard is by acting out. If things are out of control, they feel out of control. So the more you have a calm home and the more things are running smoothly, the less acting out there will be. Again, sometimes people feel this is a very hard thing, but think about it. If every morning you're looking for clean laundry and you can't find things and dinner's not made, children will feel out of sorts. So learning skills on how to do this is a big way to help your child. And again, it's you realizing that they are people with needs and that you have this huge impact on their development. This time we've had now, the majority of people, in fact, I'm thinking if I've heard of one person, but I realize I'm in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, so I know that not everyone is doing it the same. But nearly everyone that I've spoken to has really enjoyed this family time. They have felt that the stay at home and lockdown has forced on them hours and hours to be with their children. And we were living in a time where people were living together and hardly spending any quality time together. Kids were overscheduled, parents working very long hours. And often the only interaction were things like, do your homework, have a bath, get into bed, how was your day? That's nice, good night. And this has been an incredible experience, as I say, from everybody that I've spoken to, even though it's been tough to have kids at home, tough to have to work with them while they do schoolwork or whatever they're doing. But it seems that the quality of what's come out, as I say, for the people that I've spoken to, has been really, really good. And marriages as well, the majority of people I've spoken to, people have actually thrived more than the other way. It could have gone either way, but I don't work with domestic violence. Again, I know there would be communities that that's happened. Now, maybe it's because it was enforced, but I think we lost track of what's important, and family is the most important thing. This is a very Jewish concept. From a Jewish point of view, when a couple get married, we talk about building a mini temple. We talk about a home being a sanctuary. We talk about family as being the center of Jewish life, not a synagogue, not anything else, that family is the center. And if family is strong, everything else is strong. We don't need big shuls and big cathedrals. We can have a minyan when we can have minions in a room. The family is the center of everything, and we need to remind ourselves of that. I really felt that during this lockdown, that we were reminded that at the end of the day, it's just us, whoever we're locked down with. And if you've got kids at home, that's who we are. And if we don't nurture that, and if we don't grow that, then what else do we have? All the rest can come and go, as we can see. Overnight, we can lose our jobs. Overnight, we can lose our money. Overnight, we can be separated from the general community. But it's the people that we were in lockdown with, or the immediate family, that's the core of our being. And we need to prioritize that. And that's one of my wishes. And I hope it's going to happen, and I'm not sure how it's going to happen, that we don't lose this. That as we go back to work this month in school, that we don't go back to our own ways, our old ways. Now, obviously, we're going to work and do, but it means it's a consciousness, which is what I was saying at the beginning. It's thinking about how important our family is, how important our spouse is, how important our children are. And just thinking about it, our children will feel precious. We don't always have to put it in words. We should. We shouldn't take for granted. We need to tell our kids that they're important. But it's much deeper than that. It's the sense that you are my priority and your well-being is my priority. And if we're not getting along, or if you have a behavior difficulty, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think about who you are. I'm going to think about your unique soul. I'm going to think about what you need so that we can improve our relationship, so that I can bring out the best in you, so that I can facilitate your growth, so you can become the person that you meant to be, not the person I want you to be. This is a big thing in parenting. We can't expect our kids to be who we want them to be. They have their own soul and their own journey and their own godly path. We are Mother Nature. We are facilitating that. And so we need to think very deeply, and we need to put time and effort. We need to prioritize the family, the communication, the respect, the relationships. These are not secondary. Homework secondary. Making them do things is secondary. Because when you have love and trust and respect, when you have tranquility and happiness, when you make beautiful memories together, everything else will flow. I want you to know that there are many successful people, successful educationally, who only really came into their own in high school or even afterwards. One can always catch up on education, honestly. But these things that I'm talking about, these things are feeling prioritized and loved and worked with and respected and facilitated. These are things that we can do for our children that no one else can do. And in the early years, that's the time we need to do it. That's a very hard thing to catch up on later on. My final point is about having a mission in life. Now, there's a beautiful book that talks about parenting with soul. It's actually called Raising a Child with Soul. And she talks about growing up with purpose. Children love to have a purpose. We need to first have a purpose, and part of our purpose is being a parent and parenting in the best we can. But if you introduce your child to the idea that their life is valuable and that they have a purpose, their purpose could be, being a loving grandchild, their purpose could be being a good friend, but that their lives are meaningful, then again, they will be more motivated to do things. So instead of pushing from behind, you've got to, and this is important, it's attracting, it's inspiring by going, this is important because you are important, because every action you take has deep and enduring value. So I've given 9 pointers, and in my experience, these things make a very, very big impact on children. Now, in a way, it's the longer, shorter way. It sometimes seems harder or takes longer than punishment or coercion, because punishment drives people to react, but it doesn't necessarily change behavior, and it definitely doesn't make people feel good or loving towards you. Punishment is not the way to go, and punishment can be anything. It can be sarcasm, passive aggression, it can be all kinds of consequences. There is a place for that. But overall, you want to go the longer, shorter way, the longer way of thinking about it, thinking about who your child is, learning to speak their language, developing skills, getting help if you need to. But what happens is not only will your child thrive because you're gaining cooperation in a way that helps them to thrive, but you will actually help them embrace the behaviors for the rest of their lives. So I wish everybody luck in their parenting journey. It's an ongoing journey. It never stops. It's an exciting journey. It's a challenging journey. But the more we come back to what our core values are, why we had children to start with and what we want to achieve, the more we will know in what direction we need to go.